The morning sun filtered through the windows of the presidential residence in Ouagadougou, casting golden rays across the modest office where Ibrahim Traoré sat reviewing security reports. At just 36 years old, he carried the weight of an entire nation on his shoulders. The jihadist insurgency continued to threaten villages in the north, and every day brought new decisions that could mean life or death for his people. Yet on this particular morning in late November, as the Harmattan winds began their annual journey south from the Sahara, Ibrahim's mind drifted to memories of his childhood in Bondokui. He remembered his mother's hands, worn from years of hard work, preparing too in their small kitchen. He remembered his father's stern but loving voice, teaching him about responsibility and honor. He remembered the dusty streets where he played football with other boys, dreaming of a future he couldn't yet imagine. But there was always something his mother wouldn't talk about, something in her eyes when he asked about family, about relatives they never visited, about the photograph he once found hidden in her belongings of a baby girl he didn't recognize. "Mr. President," his aide, Amadou, knocked softly before entering. "There's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent and personal. She wouldn't give her name to security, but she insisted that you would want to meet her." Ibrahim looked up, his brow furrowed. "Who is she? What does she want?" Amadou hesitated, glancing at the paper in his hand. "She said to tell you that she knows about Bondoki, about your mother, Mariame, and she said to tell you that some secrets are kept not out of shame, but out of love." Ibrahim's heart stuttered. His mother had passed away 3 years earlier, just months before the coup that brought him to power. He had held her hand as she died, and in those final moments, she had tried to tell him something, but the words wouldn't come. The doctors said it was the stroke, that the damage to her brain made speech impossible. But Ibrahim had seen the desperation in her eyes, the urgent need to communicate something important. Now, someone was invoking her name with intimate knowledge. "Bring her in," Ibrahim said quietly, standing from his desk. He moved to the window, looking out at the city that had become both his responsibility and his burden. Ouagadougou bustled below with motorcycles weaving through traffic, vendors selling mangoes and fabrics, children in school uniforms walking home. Life continued, as it always did, regardless of the storms that raged in the hearts of men. The door opened behind him, and he heard soft footsteps entering. He turned slowly, and what he saw made his breath catch in his throat. The woman standing before him was perhaps in her late 20s, wearing a simple blue dress and a matching head wrap in the traditional style of the Mossi people. But it wasn't her clothing that struck him. It was her face. She had his mother's eyes, the same deep brown with flecks of amber that seemed to catch the light. She had his father's nose, strong and proud. And when she smiled nervously, he saw his own smile reflected back at him, the way the left corner lifted slightly higher than the right. "My name is Amina," she said softly in perfect Moore, the language of his childhood, "and I am your sister." Tatufour. Chapter 2. For a long moment, Ibrahim couldn't speak. He had trained himself to remain composed in the face of coup attempts, diplomatic pressure, and military crises. But this simple statement from this stranger, who wore his family's features on her face, had stripped away all of his carefully constructed defenses. He gestured to the chairs by the window, his hand slightly unsteady. "Please, sit," he managed to say. Amina moved gracefully, settling into the chair while keeping her eyes on him. There was no fear in her gaze, but there was something else, something that looked like longing mixed with sadness. Ibrahim sat across from her, his military training kicking in as he assessed the situation. Could this be a trap, an elaborate scheme by his enemies? But even as these thoughts formed, he knew they were false. No one could fake the resemblance he saw before him. "How?" he asked simply. "How is this possible? My mother never mentioned having another child." Amina's hands folded in her lap, and he noticed they trembled slightly. "Because she was asked not to. Because keeping me secret was the price of keeping me safe." She took a deep breath, gathering herself. "I should start at the beginning. Our mother, Mariam, was very young when she had me, only 16 years old. Your father, our father, was not in the picture yet. She wasn't married." Ibrahim leaned forward, his heart pounding. In traditional Burkinabe society, particularly in the conservative areas like Bondokui, an unmarried girl having a child was considered deeply shameful. Families could be ostracized, opportunities destroyed. My biological father was a man from another village, Amina continued. He was passing through, working on a construction project. He made promises to our mother, promises he never kept. When she discovered she was pregnant, he was already gone. Her family, our grandparents, were devastated. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air thicker. Ibrahim thought of his mother as he had known her, strong and dignified, always moving forward with quiet determination. He had never imagined her as a frightened teenager facing such a crisis. "So what happened to you?" he asked. "Where did you go?" "Our mother's sister, your Aunt Clarice, lived in Bobo Dioulasso. She had been unable to have children of her own. It was decided that I would be given to her to raise. Officially, I would be registered as her daughter, adopted before birth. The paperwork was arranged, and when I was born, I went straight to Bobo Dioulasso. Our mother recovered in the village, and the story was told that she had been helping Aunt Clarice through a difficult time." Amina's voice was steady, but Ibrahim could hear the underlying emotion. "A year later, she met your father. He was a good man, a man who loved her. They married, and you were born not long after." Ibrahim stood and walked back to the window, his mind racing through memories, recontextualizing everything he thought he knew about his childhood. Had his father known? Had his mother thought about her firstborn daughter while raising him? "Did my father know about you?" he asked without turning around. "No," Amina said softly. "Our mother never told him. Aunt Clarice kept the secret too. It was decided that it was better that way, that the shame wouldn't follow our mother into her new life. And as I grew up in Bobo Dioulasso, I was told that my mother had died giving birth to me, and that Aunt Clarice had generously taken me in. I believed that story until Aunt Clarice died last year." Ibrahim turned back to face her. "What happened when she died?" Amina's composure finally cracked, tears welling in her eyes. "She left me a letter. In it, she told me everything. About our mother, about you, about why I had been kept secret. She said that our mother had loved me, had wanted me, but that the society we lived in would have destroyed both of us if the truth had come out. She said that giving me to her wasn't abandonment, it was protection." Chapter 3. The revelation hung in the air between them like the dust motes dancing in the sunlight. Ibrahim moved back to his chair, this time sitting on the edge, his elbows on his knees as he tried to process everything. Around them, the sounds of the presidential residence continued, muffled voices in the hallway, the distant hum of generators, the call to prayer echoing from a nearby mosque. But in this room, time seemed to have stopped. "Why now?" Ibrahim asked finally. "Why come to me now after all this time?" Amina wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a gesture so similar to their mother's that it made Ibrahim's chest tighten. "Because I spent the last year trying to decide if I should. After Aunt Clarice died, I felt so alone. I have cousins, friends, but no immediate family. Then I watched you on television, giving speeches about sovereignty and fighting for our people, and I saw our mother in your face. I saw the way you move your hands when you talk, just like she did. And I thought maybe you deserved to know the truth." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope, yellowed with age. "This is the letter our mother wrote to me. She gave it to Aunt Clarice before I was born, asking her to give it to me when I was old enough to understand. But Aunt Clarice waited until she knew she was dying. I think because she feared what would happen if the truth came out while our mother was still alive." She handed the envelope to Ibrahim. His hands shook as he took it, feeling the weight of decades of secrecy in the thin paper. He opened it carefully, and his mother's handwriting stared back at him, looped and careful. The letter was written in French, and as he read, tears began to stream down his face. "My precious daughter," it began. "As I write this, you are sleeping in the room next door, only 3 days old. In a few hours, my sister will take you to Bobo Dioulasso, and I will return to my parents' a home in Bondokui. I want you to know that this decision is breaking my heart into pieces that will never fully heal, but I am making it because I love you more than I love myself." The letter went on to explain the circumstances, the shame, the fear of what village society would do to both mother and child if the truth was known. It spoke of sleepless nights, weighing options, of conversations with Aunt Clarice, who had offered to raise Amina as her own. "I am giving you to my sister not because I don't want you, but because I want you to have a life free from the whispers and the judgment that would follow you if you stayed with me. Clarice will love you and give you opportunities I cannot provide. But know this, my daughter, every day I will think of you. Every day I will pray that you are happy, healthy, and loved. You are my first child, and you will always have a place in my heart." Ibrahim's vision blurred as he continued reading. "If you are reading this letter, it means you are old enough to understand. Perhaps you will hate me for this choice. Perhaps you will think I abandoned you. But I hope you can see that sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes protection looks like distance. I hope you have had a good life, my daughter. I hope Clarice has been the mother I could not be. And if you ever feel the need to find your roots, to understand where you came from, know that you come from love, even if that love could not be openly expressed." The letter ended with a description of Amina's birth, how she had looked with her tiny fists and loud cry, how she had the same birthmark on her left shoulder that Mariam herself had. Ibrahim looked up at Amina. "May I see your shoulder?" he asked quietly. Without hesitation, Amina pulled down the left side of her dress slightly, revealing a small, crescent-shaped birthmark. Ibrahim felt the last of his doubts dissolve. This was his sister, his blood, a part of their mother that he had never known existed. "Our mother carried this secret for her entire life," Ibrahim said, his voice rough with emotion. "She protected you by keeping you hidden, but she protected your memory by writing that letter. She made sure you would know the truth one day." Amina nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I don't hate her for it. After reading that letter, after learning about the society she lived in, I understand. She was 16 and alone and trying to do the best she could. But Ibrahim, I spent the last year grieving not just for Aunt Clarice, but for a mother I never got to know, for a brother I never got to grow up with." Ibrahim stood and moved to sit beside her, and without thinking, he took her hand. It was smaller than his, more delicate, but the skin tone was the same, the shape of the fingers similar. "You're here now," he said. "We're here now. And maybe we can't change the past, but we can decide what happens next." Chapter 4. The afternoon faded into evening as brother and sister sat together, sharing stories of their separate lives. Ibrahim told Amina about growing up in Bondakui, about their mother's quiet strength, about how she had encouraged his education even when money was tight. He told her about attending high school in Bobo Dioulasso, never knowing that his sister lived in the same city, perhaps passing her on the street without recognition. He spoke of his years at the University of Ouagadougou studying geology, and how he had joined the military after graduation, driven by a desire to serve his country. Amina listened intently, her eyes never leaving his face. When it was her turn, she told him about growing up in Bobo Dioulasso with Aunt Clarice, who had run a small fabric shop in the market. "She was loving but strict," Amina said with a small smile. "She made sure I went to school, that I learned to read and write in both French and Mouret. She taught me to sew and to cook, and she always told me that education was the key to a better life." "Did she treat you well?" Ibrahim asked, needing to know that his sister's childhood had been happy despite the circumstances of her birth. "She loved me," Amina replied simply. "I never doubted that. She wasn't warm like some mothers. She didn't show affection easily, but I always felt secure. She worked hard to make sure I had what I needed. When I finished secondary school, she helped me enroll in nursing school. I work at the hospital in Bobo Dioulasso now, in the pediatric ward." Ibrahim felt a wave of pride. His sister was a nurse, someone who dedicated her life to helping others. Their mother would have been proud. "Do you like the work?" he asked. Amina's face brightened. "I love it. The children, even when they're sick or scared, they have such resilience. And when you can help ease their pain, help them heal, there's no feeling quite like it. It reminds me that even when the world seems dark, there's always something worth fighting for." Her words resonated deeply with Ibrahim. Wasn't that what he was trying to do for Burkina Faso? Fight for something worth preserving, for a future where people could live with dignity and hope. As darkness fell outside, the call to evening prayer echoed across the city. Ibrahim realized that hours had passed since Amina's arrival, and his staff had left them alone, sensing the importance of their meeting. "I should let you go," Amina said, standing. "You're the president of the country. You must have important things to do." Ibrahim stood as well, but he reached out and gently caught her arm. "Nothing is more important than this," he said firmly. "You are my sister. You are family. And I don't want you to leave without us making plans to see each other again." Amina's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I hoped you would say that, but I wasn't sure. You're so important now, so busy." I thought maybe there wouldn't be room in your life for a sister you never knew you had. Ibrahim pulled her into an embrace, and she came willingly, her head resting against his shoulder. He was taller, but they fit together naturally. Two pieces of the same puzzle finally joined. You listen to me, he said quietly. I don't care about titles or positions. You are my blood, my family. Our mother loved you enough to make an impossible sacrifice. The least I can do is honor that love by knowing you, by having you in my life. They stood like that for a long moment. Two people who had been strangers that morning now bound together by shared history and shared loss. When they finally separated, Ibrahim wrote down his personal phone number on a piece of paper. Call me any time, he said, day or night. I want to know about your life, your dreams, your struggles. I want to be your brother, not just in name but in action. Amina took the paper, clutching it like a precious treasure. Can I ask you something? She said hesitantly. Anything. What was our mother like? In her later years, after I was born, after you came into her life, was she happy? Chapter 5. Ibrahim considered the question carefully, wanting to give Amina an honest answer. He led her to a small shelf where several photographs sat in simple frames. He picked up one showing their mother in her 50s, standing in front of their family home in Bondokui, a rare smile on her face. She was happy in her way, Ibrahim said slowly. She wasn't demonstrative with her emotions, not openly, but there was a contentment about her, especially when she talked about how I was doing in school or when I came home for visits. She took pride in small things, in her garden, in cooking a good meal, in helping neighbors who needed assistance. He handed the photograph to Amina, who traced their mother's face with one finger, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. She looks kind, Amina whispered. She was, Ibrahim confirmed. But now that I know about you, I understand something that always puzzled me. Sometimes I would catch her staring into space with this expression of deep sadness, almost grief. When I asked what was wrong, she would shake her head and say she was just tired. I thought maybe she was worried about money or about my father's health. Now I know she was thinking of you. The realization hit them both simultaneously. Their mother had lived her entire adult life, carrying the weight of her decision. Never able to speak about the daughter she had given up, never able to acknowledge the piece of her heart that remained with Amina in Bobo Dioulasso. Do you think she regretted it? Amina asked softly, giving me away. Ibrahim thought about this carefully before answering. I think she regretted the circumstances that made it necessary. I think she grieved what could have been, but do I think she regretted the choice itself? No, because that choice gave you a life, an education, opportunities. She made sure you had a mother who loved you, even if it couldn't be her. That's not a decision made with regret. That's a decision made with immense love and terrible courage. He paused, then continued. So when she was dying, in those last days, she tried so hard to tell me something. Her mouth would move, but no words would come out because of the stroke. I thought she was trying to tell me she loved me, or give me some final advice. But now I think she was trying to tell me about you. She wanted me to know before she died, but she couldn't make the words work. Amina covered her mouth with her hand, new tears flowing. So, Ibrahim, she wanted you to find me. She wanted us to know each other. Yes, Ibrahim agreed, his own eyes wet. I believe she did. And somehow, even though she couldn't tell me herself, she made sure it happened. Aunt Clarice's letter led you to me. Our mother's plan worked, just not in the timing she might have wanted. They sat together in companionable silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts about the woman who had connected them. Finally, Ibrahim spoke again. Tell me about your life now. Are you married? Do you have children? Amina shook her head. No, neither. I've been focused on my career, on building a life for myself. There was someone, a doctor at the hospital, but it didn't work out. He wanted me to give up nursing and stay home once we married. I couldn't do that. My work means too much to me. Ibrahim smiled approvingly. Good. Never give up what matters to you for someone who doesn't understand your value. Do you live alone then? I have a small apartment near the hospital. It's not much, but it's mine. I've made it comfortable, filled it with plants and books. I have good friends, colleagues who have become like family. But there's always been this empty space, especially after Aunt Clarice died. I realize now that space was the absence of you, of our mother, of the family I didn't know I had. Her words touched something deep in Ibrahim's heart. He had been so consumed with running the country, with military strategies and political maneuvering, that he had sometimes forgotten what it felt like to be simply human, to need connection and belonging. "That empty space doesn't have to remain empty," he said. "I can't replace the years we lost, but I can be here now. We can build something new, a relationship based on honesty and mutual care. You don't have to face life alone anymore, Amina. You have a brother now, whether you want one or not." Amina laughed through her tears, the sound like music. "I definitely want one, especially one who happens to be the president." Ibrahim laughed too, the tension breaking. "Forget about the president part. When we're together, I'm just Ibrahim, your annoying older brother who's going to want to know about your life and probably give unwanted advice." "You're technically the younger one," Amina pointed out with a mischievous smile. "I'm 2 years older than you." This brought them both up short. It was true. Amina was the eldest, the firstborn, though no one knew it. Bertidi Chapter 6. The recognition of Amina's position as the eldest child brought a strange shift in the room's energy. Ibrahim had always thought of himself as the oldest, the one who bore responsibility, but now he realized his sister had carried her own burdens, perhaps heavier ones because they had been born in silence and solitude. "You're right," Ibrahim said slowly. "You are the older sibling. I should be coming to you for advice, not the other way around." Amina smiled but shook her head. "Age is just a number. You've lived through things I can't imagine. Fighting terrorists, leading a coup, running a country. I've lived in relative peace in Bobo Dioulasso, going to work every day, living a simple life. We've both had our challenges, just different kinds." Ibrahim appreciated her wisdom. "Tell me honestly, what do you think of what I'm doing? Leading the country the way I am, the changes I'm trying to make." It was a question he had never asked anyone so directly. As president, people either praised him to his face or plotted against him behind his back. But Amina had no political agenda, no reason to lie. She was simply his sister, someone who might give him the truth he desperately needed to hear. Amina took her time answering, her brow furrowed in thought. "I think you're trying to do something incredibly difficult. You're trying to change systems that have been in place for decades, to stand up to forces much more powerful than yourself. I see the passion in you, the genuine desire to help our people. But Ibrahim, I also worry. I worry that you're taking on too much, that the burden you carry will break you. I see the exhaustion in your eyes, the weight on your shoulders. Even in the few hours I've known you, I can see it." Her words were gentle but honest, and they cut through Ibrahim's defenses more effectively than any criticism could have. "I don't know how to do less," he admitted. "Every day people die because of the insurgency. Every day families go hungry because of poverty and corruption. How can I rest when so much is at stake?" "You can't save everyone, brother," Amina said softly. "And if you destroy yourself trying, you'll save no one. Our mother used to say, according to Aunt Clarice, that even the strongest tree needs strong roots or it will fall in the storm. Your roots are your connections, your family, the things that remind you why you're fighting in the first place. Don't neglect them in your pursuit of justice." Ibrahim sat back, absorbing her words. She was right, of course. In his drive to transform Burkina Faso, he had isolated himself, trusting few people, sleeping little, eating less. He had become so focused on the mission that he had forgotten the man behind it. "Will you help me?" he asked suddenly. "Help me remember who I am beneath all of this." Amina reached out and took his hand. "That's what siblings do. We remind each other of our humanity when the world tries to make us forget it. Yes, I'll help you, and you'll help me too, by being the family I thought I'd lost forever." They made plans then, practical arrangements for how they would maintain contact. Amina would return to Bobo Dioulasso, but would visit Ouagadougou regularly. Ibrahim would ensure she had secure transportation and protection, not because of who he was, but because, in these dangerous times, anyone connected to the president was potentially at risk. "I don't want special treatment," Amina protested. "I don't want people knowing I'm your sister. I just want to be able to see you, to know you." Ibrahim understood her desire for privacy, but he also understood the realities of his position. "For now, we can keep it quiet," he agreed. "But eventually, I want people to know. I want to acknowledge you publicly as my sister, not because it serves any political purpose, but because it's the truth, and I'm tired of secrets." Amina nodded slowly. "Hey, when you're ready, when the time is right, we'll do it together. But for now, let's just learn to be siblings first." They stood, and Ibrahim walked her to the door. His security detail waited outside, having given them privacy for hours. As Amina prepared to leave, she turned back one more time. "Thank you for believing me, for not turning me away. I was so afraid you would think I was lying, trying to take advantage." "I could never think that," Ibrahim said. "The moment I saw you, I knew. You have our mother's eyes, and no one could fake that." He pulled her into another embrace. "Go safely, sister. Call me when you get home." "I will, brother. Take care of yourself." If you're enjoying this story, consider subscribing to the channel so we can continue bringing you more and more content. Chapter 7. The weeks following Amina's revelation brought unexpected changes to Ibrahim's life. They spoke on the phone every few days, conversations that ranged from mundane updates about their daily lives to deeper discussions about family, identity, and the future. Ibrahim found himself looking forward to these calls, to the way Amina could make him laugh with stories from the hospital, or challenge his thinking with her straightforward questions. One evening, about a month after their first meeting, Ibrahim sat in his office late at night, reviewing reports about a recent attack in the northern province. The numbers were grim. Dozens of civilians killed, an entire village displaced. He felt the familiar weight settling over him, the crushing responsibility of knowing that every decision he made had life or death consequences. His phone rang, and he saw Amina's name on the screen. "Hello, sister," he answered, trying to keep the exhaustion from his voice. "I can hear it in your tone," Amina said immediately. "Bad day?" Ibrahim sighed. "Bad week, bad month, really. Sometimes I wonder if anything I'm doing is making a difference. The violence continues, people keep dying, and I feel like I'm just one person trying to hold back an ocean with my bare hands." "You're allowed to feel discouraged," Amina said gently. "You're allowed to be human. But remember what I told you, you can't save everyone. All you can do is your best, and from what I see, your best is pretty extraordinary." They talked for an hour, Amina telling him about a little boy who had come into the hospital that day with a severe infection. "He was so scared," she said, crying for his mother, trembling with fever. "But we gave him medicine, and I sat with him, holding his hand and telling him stories until he fell asleep. This morning he woke up better and he smiled at me. It was just one child, one small moment, but it mattered to him. It mattered to his mother." Ibrahim understood what she was trying to tell him. Change didn't always come in grand gestures or sweeping reforms. Sometimes it came in small acts of kindness, in individual lives touched and improved. "You're wiser than I am," he told her. "I wish I had grown up with you. Maybe you could have taught me these lessons earlier." "We have now," Amina reminded him. "And besides, I bet I would have been an annoying older sister, always bossing you around." Ibrahim laughed, the sound rusty from disuse. "I would have loved being bossed around by you." Their relationship deepened with each conversation, each meeting. Amina visited Ouagadougou twice more, and each time, Ibrahim carved out hours from his impossible schedule to spend with her. They walked through the markets together, Ibrahim in casual clothes and sunglasses, trying to blend in with the crowd. They ate tea and sauce at small restaurants where no one recognized the president in the man eating with his sister. During one visit, Ibrahim took Amina to their mother's grave in Bondokui. They made the journey in an unmarked vehicle, just the two of them and a single security guard who waited discreetly at a distance. Standing at the simple grave marker, Ibrahim and Amina held hands and wept together for the mother they had both loved, for the secrets she had carried, for the sacrifice she had made. "I forgive you, Mama," Amina whispered to the stone. "I understand now why you did what you did." "I forgive you and I love you," Ibrahim added his own words. "Thank you for teaching me about sacrifice and love. Thank you for making the hard choices, and thank you for giving me a sister, even if I didn't know about her until now. We'll take care of each other, Mama, I promise." They planted flowers on the grave, bright red hibiscus that their mother had loved. As they worked the soil with their hands, side by side, Ibrahim felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. This connection to his sister, this discovery of hidden family, had given him something he desperately needed, a reminder that he was more than his position, more than his responsibilities. Chapter 8. As the months passed, Ibrahim began to see his work differently through Amina's perspective. She had a way of cutting through political complexity to focus on human impact. When he told her about policy decisions, she would always ask the same question: How does this help people like the ones I see in the hospital every day? Her simple framing helped him evaluate his choices more clearly. One day, Amina called with unusual urgency in her voice. Ibrahim, I need to talk to you about something serious. He immediately gave her his full attention. What's wrong? Are you safe? I'm fine, but I'm worried about you. There are rumors circulating in Bobo Dioulasso about another coup attempt being planned. I heard nurses talking about it in the break room. They don't know I'm your sister, of course, but they were discussing what they'd heard from relatives in the military. Ibrahim felt a chill run down his spine. He had survived one coup attempt already and had intelligence suggesting others might be in the works. But hearing it from Amina made it feel more real, more immediate. Thank you for telling me, he said carefully. I'll look into it. But Amina, I need you to be careful too. If people find out you're my sister, you could become a target. I know, she said quietly. I've thought about that. But I won't let fear stop me from being your family. We've already lost too many years. Her courage humbled him. She was willing to risk her safety simply to maintain their relationship, to be the sister he had never known he needed. I'll assign you additional security, he insisted. Discreet, but there. Please don't argue with me on this. Amina sighed but agreed. Okay, but they better not interfere with my work at the hospital. I won't have armed guards following me around the pediatric ward scaring the children. Ibrahim promised to make the security as unobtrusive as possible. After hanging up, he immediately contacted his intelligence chief to investigate the rumors Amina had mentioned. The investigation revealed a plot by a faction of disgruntled officers, and swift action prevented what could have been another violent attempt at overthrowing the government. When Ibrahim called Amina to thank her, she dismissed his gratitude. Family looks out for each other, she said simply. Besides, you would have discovered it eventually. Maybe, Ibrahim admitted, but maybe not in time. You saved lives, Amina, mine, among them. The incident strengthened their bond even further. Ibrahim realized that Amina was not just his sister, but also someone he could trust implicitly in a world where trust was a rare commodity. He began to value her perspective on other matters, asking her opinion on everything from economic policies to international relations. Amina, for her part, found herself drawn more deeply into understanding the complexities of governing Burkina Faso. She read news reports with new interest, discussed politics with her colleagues at the hospital, and tried to grasp the enormous challenges her brother faced daily. I used to think politics was just people arguing and making speeches, she told him during one visit. Now I understand it's about trying to balance impossible demands and make choices where every option has a cost. That's exactly what it is, Ibrahim confirmed. And the cost is often measured in human lives and suffering, which makes every decision feel like carrying a mountain on your shoulders. They were sitting in the presidential residence garden, a rare moment of quiet in Ibrahim's chaotic schedule. The evening air was cooling, and the scent of jasmine filled the space. Do you ever regret it? Amina asked. Taking power, becoming president. Do you ever wish you could go back to being just a soldier, or even just a geology student? Ibrahim considered the question seriously. Sometimes, in the dark hours of the night when I can't sleep, because I'm thinking about the people we lost that day, or the decisions I have to make tomorrow, yes, I regret it. I think about how simple life used to be, how my biggest concern was passing an exam or impressing my commanding officer. But then I remember why I did it. The corruption, the incompetence, the way our people were being failed by their leaders, and I know I'd make the same choice again. Chapter 9. 6 months after Amina first walked into Ibrahim's office, they decided it was time to take a significant step, introducing her to the few people Ibrahim considered friends and trusted advisors. The meeting was arranged at the presidential residence on a Saturday afternoon, when official business was lighter. Ibrahim's closest allies arrived, curious about who this woman was that their president wanted them to meet. Amadou, Ibrahim's loyal aide, was there, along with Colonel Sawadogo, one of the few military officers Ibrahim trusted completely, and Dr. Ouedraogo, who had been Ibrahim's professor at the University of Ouagadougou and now served as an informal advisor. Ibrahim introduced Amina simply as someone very important to me, and asked for their patience as he explained a story they had never heard before. He told them everything, Fane, about their mother's secret, about Amina's upbringing with Aunt Clarice, about the letter that had revealed the truth. As he spoke, he watched their faces carefully, gauging their reactions. Amadou looked shocked but sympathetic. Colonel Sawadogo's expression was hard to read, as always, but he nodded thoughtfully. Dr. Ouedraogo smiled warmly, his eyes moving between Ibrahim and Amina, clearly seeing the family resemblance. "So you see," Ibrahim concluded, "Amina is my sister, my older sister actually, though the world doesn't know it yet. I wanted you to meet her because you are the people I trust most, and I believe you'll understand why this matters so much to me." There was a moment of silence. Then Amadou spoke up. "Mr. President, this is wonderful news. Family is everything, and I'm so happy you found each other." Colonel Sawadogo stood and approached Amina, extending his hand. "Welcome to the family, so to speak. Your brother is a good man and a great leader. I'm glad he has you in his life." Dr. Ouedraogo embraced both Ibrahim and Amina warmly. "I always thought there was something in your mother's eyes," he told Ibrahim. "A sorrow she carried. Now I understand it better. She must have been an extraordinary woman to make the choice she made." The meeting went better than Ibrahim had dared hope. His advisors welcomed Amina warmly, and soon they were all sitting together, sharing stories and getting to know each other. Amina charmed them with her straightforward manner and quick wit, and Ibrahim could see their respect for him growing as they understood the family he came from. Later that evening, after the others had left, Colonel Sawadogo asked to speak with Ibrahim privately. "I need to advise you about something, and you're not going to like it," he began. Ibrahim braced himself. "Go ahead. If you choose to publicly acknowledge Amina as your sister, it will put her in danger. Your enemies will see her as a potential weakness, a target they can use against you. You need to think very carefully about whether the acknowledgement is worth the risk." Ibrahim had been expecting this conversation. "I know the risks," he said quietly. "Believe me, I've thought about little else since Amina came into my life, but I'm tired of secrets, tired of hiding things that matter. Our mother had to hide Amina for years because of shame and social pressure. I won't continue that pattern. When the time is right, I will claim my sister publicly, and we'll deal with the security implications together." Colonel Sawadogo nodded slowly. "I respect that. Just promise me you'll let me put proper security measures in place first, and that you'll prepare Amina for what it means to be known as the president's sister." "I will," Ibrahim promised. "We're not rushing into anything, but it will happen. I'm determined about that." When he shared this conversation with Amina later, she had mixed feelings. "Part of me wants the world to know," she admitted. "I want to be able to say proudly that you're my brother, but another part of me fears what that acknowledgement might cost us, both personally and in terms of your political position." "Whatever we decide together," Ibrahim assured her. "This is not just my choice to make. You're the one who would bear the brunt of public attention and potential danger. Your voice matters as much as mine in this decision." They agreed to wait a few more months, to let their relationship strengthen further, and to allow Ibrahim's administration to stabilize. But both knew that eventually the truth would come out, one way or another. Dakar. Chapter 10. The decision to go public came unexpectedly, forced by circumstances neither Ibrahim nor Amina could have anticipated. A journalist in Bobo Dioulasso, investigating a story about military families, uncovered documents related to Aunt Clarice's adoption of a baby girl decades earlier. Digging deeper, the journalist connected the dots between the timing of the adoption, Amina's resemblance to the president, and various small clues that painted a compelling picture. The journalist contacted Ibrahim's office, seeking comment on the story he planned to publish. Ibrahim knew immediately that he had to act before the narrative got away from him. He called an emergency meeting with his advisors and, most importantly, with Amina. She made the journey from Bobo Dioulasso to Ouagadougou in record time, arriving at the presidential residence with fear and determination warring on her face. "I'm so sorry," she said immediately. "I should have been more careful, should have anticipated something like this." Ibrahim took her hands in his. "This is not your fault. Secrets this big rarely stay hidden forever. The question now is how we handle it." They spent hours strategizing, discussing options and implications. In the end, they decided that the best approach was to embrace the truth fully, to hold a press conference where Ibrahim would acknowledge Amina as his sister and explain the circumstances that had kept them apart. "I'll be right there with you," Amina said firmly when the plan was outlined. If we're doing this, we do it together. The press conference was scheduled for the following afternoon, giving them less than a day to prepare. That night, unable to sleep, Ibrahim and Amina sat together in his private quarters, talking about their mother and the choice she had made decades earlier. She would be terrified right now, Amina said, terrified that the secret she kept so carefully was about to become public knowledge. Or maybe she would be relieved, Ibrahim suggested. Maybe she would be happy that her children found each other and chose to acknowledge their relationship openly, regardless of the cost. Maybe this is what she wanted all along, but couldn't have in her lifetime. Amina considered this. You might be right. That letter she wrote me, it wasn't a letter of shame or regret. It was a letter of love and hope. Maybe she always dreamed that someday, somehow, you and I would find each other. The next day arrived with the weight of destiny. The press conference was held in the main hall of the presidential residence, with national and international media present. Cameras flashed as Ibrahim took the podium, Amina standing beside him in a simple but elegant dress, her head held high despite her nervousness. Ibrahim began by thanking everyone for coming, then launched into the story without preamble. He spoke about his mother, about her life as a young woman in Bondokui, about the circumstances that led to her difficult decision. He introduced Amina to the nation, explaining how she had found him and how they had built a relationship over the past months. He spoke with honesty and emotion, not shying away from the complexity of the situation or the pain it had caused their mother. I stand before you today not just as your president, but as a son and a brother, Ibrahim said, his voice clear and strong. My mother made an impossible choice out of love and protection. My sister grew up not knowing the truth of her origins, and I lived my life unaware that I had a sibling until just months ago. We are all products of the societies we live in, and sometimes those societies force decisions that carry pain and consequence. Chapter 11. The response to the press conference was immediate and overwhelming. Social media exploded with commentary, some supportive, some critical, all intense. Traditional media ran the story as their lead for days. In Burkina Faso and across Africa, people debated the implications, the morality of the secret, and the courage of the public acknowledgement. Public opinion was divided, but interestingly, it split along unexpected lines. Many women, especially older women, expressed deep sympathy for Mariam's situation and praised her for finding a solution that kept her daughter safe. Younger people admired Ibrahim and Amina for their honesty and for challenging traditional shame around out-of-wedlock births. However, there was also criticism. Conservative religious leaders condemned Mariam's early pregnancy and questioned whether someone from such a flawed family should lead the nation. Political opponents seized on the revelation to attack Ibrahim's credibility and character. International observers questioned whether the president should have disclosed such personal information when the country faced security and economic crises. Through it all, Ibrahim and Amina stood together, united in their decision. They gave a joint interview to a respected African journalist where they spoke more deeply about family, sacrifice, and the importance of breaking cycles of shame and secrecy. Our mother carried a burden that no woman should have to carry, Amina said during the interview. She was punished by society for being human, for being young and making a mistake. But from that mistake came me, and I am not a mistake. I am a person with value and worth. By acknowledging me publicly, my brother is saying that shame ends here, with our generation. Ibrahim added his perspective. As leaders, we ask people to be honest, to live with integrity, to reject corruption and secrecy. How can I demand that of others if I'm not willing to live it myself? Yes, there are security implications. Yes, there are political risks. But there are also principles that matter more than political calculation. Family is one of those principles. Truth is another. The interview was widely praised and helped shift public opinion in their favor. More and more people began to see the story not as a scandal, but as a powerful narrative about redemption, family bonds, and the courage to challenge unjust social norms. In Bobo Dioulasso, Amina's colleagues at the hospital rallied around her. Her patients and families expressed support, and several older women shared their own stories of difficult choices they had made regarding children born in challenging circumstances. Amina realized that by going public with her story, she had inadvertently given voice to countless other women who had lived with similar secrets and shame. I'm receiving letters, she told Ibrahim during one of their phone calls. Women from all over Burkina Faso and even other countries, sharing their stories with me. Some gave up children for adoption. Some raised children alone, facing terrible judgment. They say our story has given them permission to forgive themselves, to see their choices as acts of love rather than acts of shame. Ibrahim was deeply moved by this unexpected outcome. Our mother's sacrifice continues to bear fruit, he said. Even though she's gone, her story is helping others heal. The weeks following the revelation were challenging but ultimately strengthening for both siblings. Ibrahim's approval ratings actually increased as people appreciated his authenticity and his willingness to be vulnerable. Security measures were enhanced around both him and Amina, but no serious threats materialized. More importantly, the relationship between Ibrahim and Amina deepened even further. No longer burdened by secrecy, they could acknowledge each other freely. Amina visited Ouagadougou more frequently, sometimes even accompanying Ibrahim to official events. People grew accustomed to seeing the president's sister, the nurse from Bobo Dioulasso who refused to give up her job despite her brother's position. She became a popular figure in her own right, known for her down-to-earth manner and her commitment to healthcare. One evening, 4 months after the press conference, Ibrahim and Amina were walking through the gardens of the presidential residence. The rainy season had begun, bringing relief from the heat and painting everything green. "Do you ever wonder what our mother would think of all this?" Amina asked. "Tired about us being public about the reaction, about everything that's happened." Ibrahim smiled. "I think she would be overwhelmed and probably a little worried, but I also think she would be proud. Proud that we found each other. Proud that we chose honesty over secrecy. Proud that her story has helped other people find peace." They walked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Amina spoke again. "I've been thinking about something. I want to start a foundation. Something to help young women who find themselves pregnant and alone. So many of them face the same impossible choices our mother faced. Maybe we can create more options, more support, so fewer women have to give up their children out of desperation." Chapter 12. Ibrahim's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "That's a brilliant idea. I'll help you however I can, providing resources, connections, whatever you need." And so the Mariam Traoré Foundation was born, named in honor of the woman whose difficult choice had ultimately brought healing and change to so many lives. Amina took the lead in establishing the foundation, working with healthcare professionals, social workers, and community leaders to create comprehensive support systems for vulnerable young women. The foundation provided medical care, counseling, education, and practical support for young mothers. It also worked to change cultural attitudes, sponsoring community dialogues about shame, judgment, and the importance of supporting women facing difficult circumstances. Ibrahim used his position to promote the foundation's work, speaking publicly about the need to create a society where women were not punished for being human. Within a year, the foundation had helped hundreds of women across Burkina Faso. Some chose to keep their babies, supported by the resources and counseling provided. Others chose adoption, but now it was done through ethical channels with ongoing support for both birth mothers and adoptive families. The stigma around unwed pregnancy began to slowly shift, particularly among younger generations. The work took Amina away from her hospital position, though she maintained her nursing license and occasionally volunteered on pediatric wards. She found new purpose in the foundation, channeling her own experience and her mother's legacy into tangible help for others. Ibrahim watched with pride as his sister grew into a leadership role of her own, distinct from his political position, but equally important. Their relationship continued to evolve and deepen. They developed routines, weekly phone calls on Sunday evenings, monthly dinners where politics were strictly off limits, and annual trips to their mother's grave in Bondokui, where they would update Mariam on their lives and the impact of her story. On the first anniversary of Amina revealing herself to Ibrahim, they decided to do something special. They invited everyone who had been important to their journey to a celebration at the presidential residence. Amadou was there, of course, along with Colonel Sawadogo and Dr. Wedraogo. Amina's colleagues from the hospital came, as did several women who had been helped by the foundation and wanted to express their gratitude. It was a diverse gathering, bringing together people from different walks of life, all connected by the story of two siblings finding each other against all odds. As the sun set over Ouagadougou, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Ibrahim raised a glass to offer a toast. "1 year ago, a woman walked into my office and changed my life forever. She brought me the greatest gift I could have received, the knowledge that I have a sister, that I am not alone in this world in the way I thought I was. Our mother kept a secret for decades, and while we can't know all of her reasons or all of her feelings, we choose to believe that love motivated her choice." He turned to Amina, his eyes shining with emotion. "Sister, you have enriched my life beyond measure. You have reminded me that I am more than my position, that family and connection matter more than power or politics. You have taken your own pain and the pain of our mother and transformed it into help for others. I am so proud to be your brother, so grateful that you had the courage to find me." Amina stood, tears streaming down her face but a huge smile on her lips. "And I am grateful to have a brother who chose honesty over convenience, who stood beside me when it would have been easier to keep me hidden. We have built something beautiful from something that was broken. We have honored our mother's sacrifice by refusing to perpetuate the shame that forced her choice. And together, we are creating a better future for Burkina Faso, one family at a time." The room erupted in applause and cheers. People embraced, laughter and joy filling the space. As the celebration continued into the evening, Ibrahim and Amina found a quiet corner where they could talk privately. "Do you remember that first day?" Ibrahim asked. "When you walked into my office and told me you were my sister?" Amina laughed. "I was terrified. I thought you might call security and have me removed." "I thought you would think I was crazy or lying." "I could never think that," Ibrahim said. "The moment I saw you, I knew, and my life has been better every day since." They stood together, looking out at the gathering, at the people who had become part of their extended family. "Our mother would be so proud," Amina said softly. "Not just of what we've accomplished, but of the fact that we found each other, that we chose love over fear." Ibrahim put his arm around his sister's shoulders, pulling her close. "She's watching over us. I'm sure of it. And somewhere, somehow, she knows that her sacrifice was not in vain, that from her difficult choice came something good and true and lasting." As the night deepened and the stars emerged over Ouagadougou, brother and sister remained together. Two people who had been strangers but were now bonded by blood, choice, and love. They had taken a secret that had caused pain and transformed it into a story of redemption and hope. And in doing so, they had honored not only their mother's memory, but also the resilience of the human spirit and the power of family to heal even the deepest wounds. The truth that had been hidden to protect Amina had been revealed, not destroying them, but making them stronger. And in the years to come, the story of the president and his sister would inspire countless others to choose honesty, to value family, and to believe that even the most difficult circumstances can lead to unexpected blessings. Their mother's secret had become their shared strength, and from that strength, they would continue to build a better future for themselves, for their country, and for all who came after them. Beats out the end. Epilogue. 3 years had passed since that first press conference when Ibrahim stood before the nation and introduced Amina as his sister. The sun rose over Ouagadougou on a crisp January morning, painting the city in shades of gold and amber. In the presidential residence, Ibrahim sat at his desk reviewing documents, but his mind kept drifting to the events planned for later that day. It was a significant anniversary, one that marked not just personal milestones, but national transformation as well. The Mariam Traoré Foundation had grown beyond anyone's wildest expectations. What had started as Amina's dream to help young women facing difficult pregnancies had evolved into a comprehensive network of support spanning healthcare, education, economic empowerment, and social advocacy. The foundation now operated in every province of Burkina Faso and had begun expanding into neighboring countries. Just last month, they had opened their 15th community center, this one in the remote northern town of Djibo, an area still recovering from years of insurgent violence. Ibrahim thought about the numbers his staff had compiled for today's celebration. The foundation had directly assisted over 5,000 women in the past 3 years. It had facilitated 300 ethical adoptions, ensuring that both birth mothers and adoptive families received counseling and support. It had provided scholarships to 400 young mothers so they could continue their education. Perhaps most importantly, It had sparked a national conversation about shame, judgment, and the treatment of vulnerable women that was slowly but steadily changing cultural attitudes. But the foundation was just one part of the story. Ibrahim's own presidency had been shaped profoundly by his relationship with Amina. Her influence had made him a more empathetic leader, one who understood that policy decisions affected real people with real struggles. When he pushed for healthcare reform, he thought about the children Amina had cared for in the pediatric ward. When he fought corruption in government contracts, he remembered how their mother had struggled to make ends meet on limited resources. When he resisted international pressure to compromise Burkina Faso's sovereignty, he recalled his family's history of making difficult choices to protect what mattered most. The security situation in the country remained challenging, but there had been improvements. Ibrahim's strategy of combining military action with community engagement and economic development was showing results in some regions. Villages that had been terrorized by insurgents were slowly recovering, with government support helping them rebuild infrastructure and restore normal life. It was fragile progress, vulnerable to setbacks, but it was progress nonetheless. Internationally, Ibrahim's reputation had evolved in interesting ways. The revelation about Amina and their decision to go public had humanized him in the eyes of many observers. He was no longer seen merely as a young military strongman, but as a complex person navigating leadership while dealing with family, legacy, and personal growth. Some foreign journalists had dubbed him the president who chose family over politics. Though Ibrahim found that framing overly simplistic, he hadn't chosen one over the other. He had integrated them, allowing his personal values to inform his public role. His phone buzzed with a message from Amina. "Running a bit late. The foundation office in Bobo had an emergency situation I needed to handle. We'll be there by noon. Can't wait to see you, brother." Ibrahim smiled. Amina's commitment to her work sometimes meant she was late to events, even ones held in her honor, but that was part of what made her remarkable. She had never allowed her connection to the president to become her primary identity. She remained first and foremost a nurse, a humanitarian, and an advocate for vulnerable women. There was a knock on the door, and Amadou entered with his usual efficient manner. "Mr. President, the preparations are complete. The guests are beginning to arrive. We're expecting about 300 people, including representatives from international organizations, government ministers, community leaders, and, of course, many women who have been helped by the foundation." Ibrahim nodded, standing and adjusting his traditional bubu, a deep blue fabric embroidered with gold patterns. He had chosen traditional dress for today's event rather than his usual military uniform or Western suit. This was a celebration of culture, family, and community, and his clothing should reflect that. "Has the special guest arrived?" Ibrahim asked. Amadou smiled, one of his rare, genuine smiles. "Yes, Mr. President. She arrived this morning and is resting in the guest quarters. I think she's quite overwhelmed by everything." The special guest was Aunt Clarice's daughter, Amina's cousin who had grown up believing Amina was her biological sister. After the truth came out, there had been some initial awkwardness and hurt feelings, but gradually the relationship had healed and evolved. The cousin, whose name was Fatoumata, had become one of the foundation's strongest supporters, using her own experience to counsel other families navigating complex situations around adoption and identity. As the morning progressed, Ibrahim moved through the residents greeting early arrivals and ensuring everything was in order. The event was being held in the gardens, which had been transformed with traditional decorations, colorful fabrics draped between trees, and long tables laden with Burkinabe cuisine. Musicians were setting up their instruments, traditional balafons and djembe drums that would fill the air with the rhythms of West Africa. Dr. Ouedraogo found Ibrahim near the main stage, and the two men embraced warmly. The professor had become something of a mentor to both Ibrahim and Amina, offering wisdom drawn from decades of observing Burkinabe society and politics. "I've been thinking about your mother a lot lately," Dr. Ouedraogo said, as they stood together watching the preparations, "about the courage it took to make the choice she made, and about the legacy she left behind without even realizing it." "What do you mean?" Ibrahim asked. "Well, consider what has happened. Her difficult decision, made in fear and isolation, has become the foundation for a movement that is helping thousands of women. Her secret, which caused her pain for decades, has been transformed into a source of healing for others. It's almost as if her suffering had a purpose beyond what she could have imagined. Ibrahim pondered this. I think she would be amazed to see what has come from her choice, and I hope she would forgive herself for the pain she felt she had caused. I think, Dr. Ouedraogo said slowly, that forgiveness comes easier when we see the fruit of our actions. Your mother's action bore fruit in you and in Amina, and now that fruit is multiplying across the nation, if there is an afterlife where she can observe what has happened, I imagine she has found peace. Around 11:30, a commotion at the entrance signaled Amina's arrival. Ibrahim made his way through the growing crowd to greet her. She emerged from the vehicle looking slightly frazzled, her hair escaping from its carefully arranged wrap, but her eyes were bright with excitement. They embraced, and Ibrahim felt the familiar sense of rightness that always came when they were together. "Sorry I'm late," Amina said. "There was a 17-year-old girl who came to our Bobo office this morning, pregnant and terrified. Her family had thrown her out. I couldn't just leave without making sure she was settled somewhere safe." "Of course you couldn't," Ibrahim said. "That's exactly why you do what you do. Is she okay now?" Amina nodded. "She's staying at one of our residential facilities. We'll help her through the pregnancy and support whatever decisions she makes about the baby. But Ibrahim, she was so scared, just like our mother must have been. It reminded me why this work matters so much." As noon approached, the gardens filled with people from every segment of Burkinabe society. There were government officials in expensive suits, standing next to village elders in traditional robes. There were young women who had been helped by the foundation, some holding babies, others with school textbooks tucked under their arms. There were healthcare workers, teachers, religious leaders who had supported the foundation's mission, and activists who saw the organization as part of a larger movement for women's rights and social justice. The program began with traditional music and dance, performers from different ethnic groups showcasing the cultural diversity of Burkina Faso. Then, various speakers took the stage to share testimonies and reflections. A young woman named Salamata, who had been one of the foundation's first clients, spoke about how the organization had saved her life. "I was 16 and pregnant, and I wanted to die," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion in her words. "My family had disowned me. The baby's father had disappeared, and I saw no future for myself. Then I heard about the Mariam Traoré Foundation. They gave me a place to stay, medical care, counseling, and most importantly, they gave me hope. Today, my daughter is 2 years old and healthy. I'm finishing my education and training to become a teacher. I am not ashamed of my past because the foundation taught me that my worth is not determined by other people's judgment." There were dozens of similar stories, each one a testament to the difference that compassion and support could make. Ibrahim listened to each one, feeling both pride in what had been accomplished and renewed determination to do more. The need was still enormous, the challenges still daunting, but progress was undeniable. When it was Amina's turn to speak, she approached the microphone with her characteristic blend of confidence and humility. 3 years ago, I walked into my brother's office and told him a truth that had been hidden for decades. I didn't know what would happen, whether he would believe me, whether he would want me in his life. But Ibrahim did something that changed both of us. He chose truth over convenience, family over political calculation, and love over fear. She paused, looking out at the assembled crowd. "Our mother, Mariam Traoré, made an impossible choice when she was just 16 years old. She gave me to her sister to raise, because she believed that was the only way to give me a chance at a good life. For years, I struggled with that decision, feeling abandoned and unwanted. But as I've grown older, as I've worked with young women facing similar situations, I've come to understand that my mother's choice was an act of profound love. She sacrificed her own desires, her own connection to me, to give me opportunities she couldn't provide." Amina's voice grew stronger. "The foundation we've built bears her name because we want to honor that sacrifice and create a world where such painful choices are less necessary. We want to build a society where young women who become pregnant are not cast out but supported, where shame is replaced with compassion, judgment with understanding, and isolation with community. We haven't achieved that vision yet, but every woman we help brings us closer." She gestured to Ibrahim. "My brother leads a nation, makes decisions that affect millions of people, deals with crises that would break most people. But he has never been too busy or too important to be my brother. He has supported this foundation not just with resources, but with his personal commitment and advocacy. Together, we are trying to transform our mother's private pain into public healing, and from what I see here today, from the faces of the women whose lives have changed, I believe we are succeeding. The applause was thunderous and sustained. People stood, many wiping tears from their eyes. When Ibrahim took the stage after Amina, he had to wait several minutes for the crowd to quiet enough for him to speak. "I am Ibrahim Traoré," he began, "and I am many things. I am the president of Burkina Faso, a soldier, a leader. But the role I am most proud of is being Amina's brother. When I discovered I had a sister, it changed my understanding of everything. It changed how I see family, how I think about the choices people make in difficult circumstances, and how I understand my responsibility as a leader." He spoke about the journey of the past 3 years, the challenges and the victories. He talked about the women the foundation had helped and the societal changes that were slowly taking root. He acknowledged the work that remained and called on everyone present to be part of the solution. "Change doesn't come from government alone," he said. "It comes from communities deciding they will no longer tolerate injustice. It comes from families choosing to support their daughters rather than reject them. It comes from each of us deciding that compassion matters more than conformity to unjust traditions." As his speech concluded, Ibrahim called Amina back to the stage, and together they unveiled a new initiative. The foundation would be launching a nationwide program to train community health workers, specifically focused on supporting young mothers. These workers would be embedded in villages and neighborhoods across Burkina Faso, providing education, resources, and advocacy. "Our mother died before I could tell her that I had found my sister," Ibrahim said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I believe she knows. I believe she sees what we've built from her sacrifice. And I hope she has found the peace that eluded her in life." Amina took his hand, and together they stood before the crowd, 2 siblings united by blood, choice, and shared purpose. The afternoon continued with more music, dancing, and celebration. People mingled, sharing stories and making connections. Young women who had been helped by the foundation met others in similar situations, forming networks of support that would extend far beyond the event. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant reds and purples, Ibrahim and Amina found themselves alone for a moment in a quiet corner of the garden. They sat on a bench beneath a mango tree, watching the celebration continue around them. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day?" Amina asked. "You said we couldn't change the past, but we could decide what happens next." Ibrahim nodded. "I remember. It felt like such an inadequate thing to say at the time, faced with decades of secrets and separation. But you were right," Amina said. "We couldn't change the fact that our mother felt forced to give me up. We couldn't change the years we lost. But we could decide how our story continued, and look at what we've created." They sat in comfortable silence, 2 people who had found each other against impossible odds and had used that discovery to create something larger than themselves. Their mother's secret, kept for so long out of fear and shame, had become a catalyst for transformation, not just in their personal lives but in the broader society. As darkness fell and light strung through the gardens began to glow, the celebration shifted into a more intimate gathering. Close friends and family members remained, sharing food and conversation. Fatoumata approached Ibrahim and Amina, her expression nervous but determined. "I wanted to thank you both," she said. "When I first learned that Amina wasn't really my sister, I felt betrayed. I felt like my whole childhood had been a lie. But now I understand that love isn't diminished by the truth. Amina is my sister in every way that matters, regardless of biology. And the foundation has helped me process my own feelings about adoption and identity." Amina embraced her cousin warmly. "You are my sister, Fatoumata. You always will be. We were raised together, loved by the same woman, shaped by the same experiences. DNA doesn't define family, love does." As midnight approached and the last guests departed, Ibrahim and Amina remained in the garden with just a handful of close friends. Someone suggested they make a toast, and glasses of palm wine were distributed. Colonel Sawadogo, who had become not just an ally but a friend to both siblings, raised his glass first. "To Mariam Traoré, who made an impossible choice with grace and courage. May her legacy continue to grow and transform lives for generations to come." "To Mariam," everyone echoed, drinking deeply. Then Amadou offered his toast to Ibrahim and Amina, who took a painful secret and transformed it into a source of healing. You have shown us all what it means to choose truth and family above all else. Again, they drank together. Finally, Dr. Ouedraogo, his voice carrying the wisdom of his years, offered the last toast. To the future, to a Burkina Faso where young women are not punished for being human, where families support rather than reject, where compassion triumphs over judgment. May we all work to build that future together. As the gathering finally dispersed, Ibrahim walked Amina to her car. She would return to Bobo Dioulasso in the morning, back to her work at the foundation, back to the young women who needed her support and guidance. But tonight, she would stay at the presidential residence, in the room that had become hers, surrounded by family. "Thank you," Ibrahim said simply as they stood by her door. "Zati, for finding me, for having the courage to reveal yourself, for everything you've brought to my life." Amina smiled, her face radiant in the soft light. "Thank you for not turning me away, for believing me, for being the brother I always needed, but never knew I had." They embraced one final time, holding on perhaps a moment longer than necessary, each drawing strength and comfort from the other. Then Amina slipped into her room, and Ibrahim made his way to his own quarters. Alone in his bedroom, Ibrahim stood at the window looking out over the city. Ouagadougou was quiet now, most people sleeping, preparing for another day of challenges and opportunities. Somewhere out there were young women facing impossible choices, families struggling with secrets, people searching for belonging and acceptance. The work was far from done. The foundation, as successful as it had become, could only reach a fraction of those in need. The cultural attitudes that had forced his mother's hand still existed in many communities. The poverty and lack of opportunity that made every difficult situation worse persisted across the nation. But progress had been made, lives had been changed, a conversation had been started that was slowly shifting the society. Ibrahim thought about the long journey from that day, when a stranger walked into his office claiming to be his sister, to this moment 3 years later. He thought about all the moments in between, the tears and laughter, the challenges and victories, the gradual building of a relationship that now felt as natural as breathing. He thought about his mother, young and frightened, making a choice that would echo through decades. He hoped that wherever she was, whatever lay beyond death, she could see what had grown from the seed of her sacrifice. He hoped she knew that her children had found each other, had claimed each other publicly, and were working to ensure that other mothers and children wouldn't face the same painful separation. As he prepared for sleep, Ibrahim's last thoughts were of gratitude. Gratitude for Amina's courage in seeking him out. Gratitude for the advisors and friends who had supported their relationship. Gratitude for the opportunity to turn personal discovery into public good. And gratitude for the mysterious ways that truth, however long hidden, eventually finds its way into the light. In another part of the city, Amina lay in her bed thinking similar thoughts. She thought about Aunt Clarice, who had raised her with love, even while keeping secrets. She thought about her biological mother, Mariam, whose face she had only seen in photographs but whose presence she felt every day in her work. She thought about Ibrahim, the brother she had gained, and how their relationship had become the anchor of her life. Tomorrow she would return to Bobo Dioulasso, back to the foundation office where young women would be waiting for help, for hope, for someone to tell them that their circumstances didn't define their worth. She would continue the work that honored her mother's memory and transformed her mother's pain into healing for others. But tonight, she was simply Amina Traoré, sister of Ibrahim, daughter of Mariame, part of a family that had been broken but was now whole. And that was enough. That was everything. The stars over Ouagadougou shone brilliant in the clear January sky, unchanged and eternal, watching over a nation that was slowly transforming, one family, one woman, one choice at a time. The truth that had been hidden to protect her had been revealed, not destroying anything but creating something new and beautiful. And in the years to come, the story of two siblings who found each other and chose love over fear would continue to inspire, to heal, and to remind people that even the most carefully kept secrets can become the foundation for extraordinary grace. The end.